So we are going to learn the functions as we have discussed last time, the introduction about the functions. Let us start again. We know that the large program can be divided into some basic building blocks, which is known as the function. So it may contains the set of programming statements which is enclosed by the curly braces. A function, so that function can be called multiple times, which will provide the reusability and modularity of the C program. We know that this is the collection of number of subprograms which are called as a procedures or subroutine. Sometimes it will be called as a subroutine in other programming language. Sometimes it will be called as a procedure. The function, small program function is similar to C program that will be called many number of times, and this function, which is a small programs, looks like a C program. We know that the function is a particularly we are using the main function in our C program, that is called as a function. The main function is also a particularly function which is known as user defined function, but that function is a compulsory function. So what are the advantages of using the functions? That by using the functions we can avoid rewriting of same logic or particularly source code again and again in a program. So we don't write the same program, same logic number of times. So that's the very good advantage of functions. We have to avoid to rewrite the same logic. When we call C functions any number of times in a program and from any place of the program, so we can call this function any number of times, and we can call the C function and we can place it in a program anywhere. Now we can track the large program very easily, and when it is divided into multiple functions, when it is divided into multiple functions. So that C program may contains the number of lines, the number of multiple functions we can use in any C program. So reusability is the main achievement of that C program. Reusability in the sense that we can reuse the same logic or same source code again and again in a whole program. The program may contains multiple lines, may it have the 10,000 to 1 lakh.
सर म्यूट झालाय तुमचा आवाज.
Okay. So those are the particularly a large program where we can use the basic building blocks, which is called as a C function, and that will be used multiple times to provide the reusability and modularity of the C program, and the collection of functions which will be create a particularly a large program. So this function is sometimes called as a procedure, in other programming language, or subroutine in any programming language. So we can avoid to rewrite the same logic and code again and again, and we can call the C functions any number of times in a program. We can track the large C program easily, and it can be divided into multiple functions. So reusability is the main advantage of C functions. C functions that will be always override a C program. So what are the different types of functions? There are two types of functions, that is library function and user defined function. The function is a particularly a group of statements that will together perform a specific task. So what is function? It is a sub program. It is a small program, and that particularly small program, which is a set of number of statements that we together perform a specific task. For example, if we want to draw a line on the screen, that is some sort of a specific task. So multiple times the same type of line we can draw on the screen, that can be achieved by the using the function. So every C program has at least one function which is called as a main function. We know that the main function is a compulsory function. So the function that has the particularly number of lines, and that will be defined for, or you can say it will be used for to perform some specific task to achieve. So that will be called as a function. The types of the function, that is user defined function and library functions. So library functions, or you can say predefined functions. So there are two types, that library functions and user defined functions. What are in the library functions, we can call it as a predefined in the sense that when the C program is developed, those all functions are actually developed with the C programming language, and those are all kept in the library of the C programming language. Now that will be the library functions which can be declared inside the header files. We know that header files we used stdio.h as well as conio.h. Those two different header files we have used in our programs. So that will be specified with the predefined symbol, which is called as a hash symbol or a number sign. So those all library functions are residing in that .h file, that is header file. So in the stdio.h file, there will be printf and scanf function will be stored in that function. So for example, we have to clear the screen. So clr scr function is used, and that is kept in the console input output.h, that is conio.h file. So what next? The body inside the DLL files, the library functions will be get available. So for example, the library functions are printf, scanf, string length, string compare, string copy, whatever the type conversion functions are available with the library. So all mathematical functions, all graphical functions, all input output functions, all data type conversion functions, those are all kept in library functions. And what is the next? And on the other hand, the user defined function. What is this? User defined functions will be created by the users. Who are the users? We are the users. So we can create our own function that is called as a user defined functions, and it can reduce the complexity of the program. So this will reduce the complexity of the program. So program will become some sort of a simplicity. So simple programs we can do with the use of user defined functions. So these are the library functions and user defined functions. Let us see the library functions, which are those we can say it is a predefined to C compiler, and the implementation of the part of the predefined functions are available in the library files, and those are kept in the .lib or .obj files. So .lib or .obj files are contained as a pre-compiled code. Pre-compiled code in the sense it is already compiled by the C language. So for example, the printf, the scanf, the clear screen, power function, that is the mathematical function, those all are the predefined functions. What are the limitations of the library functions? All predefined functions are contained as some limited task, and that only be used what the purpose of the function is designed for. The same purpose it should be used. So for the power function, it can be used only for getting the power of any numeric quantity. So we cannot use the same function for other purposes. So as the programmer, we do not having any controls on these predefined functions. We don't have any control, and the implementation of this particularly functions of a library that will be in machine readable format. In implementation, whenever a predefined function is not supporting user requirement, then go to the user defined functions. So those all functions will be predefined functions, and that will be not supported by the user requirement. What is the user defined function? Those all functions which are created by the programmer according to their requirement. For example, suppose you want to create a function to add two numbers, and then you can create a function with the name sum. So this type of functions is called as a user defined function. So we can just see the particularly C library functions. So C library functions are actually inbuilt functions. Those are stored with the C library, and those will be grouped and placed at the common place called the library. Some such functions are used to perform some specific operations. For example, printf is a library functions which can be used to print on the console. Whatever the message you can print on that console. Console in the sense the screen. The library functions which are created by the designers of the compiler. So all the library functions will be created by the designers of the compiler. Which compiler? The C compiler. So those all library functions are developed by the C developers. We know that C is developed by Dennis Ritchie. So all C standard library functions are defined inside the different header files saved with the extension that is .h. So all these standard library functions are defined inside the different header files. So all these header files are having extension .h. We need to include those header files in our program to make use of these all library functions in such a header files. So we can use those all library functions in our program for the specific purpose. For example, to use the library functions such as the printf, scanf, we need to include stdio.h. So stdio.h, that is the standard input output header file, is available with the library of the C programming. So which is the header file, and that contains the all library functions regarding the standard input output. So this is called as a C library functions. Here is the list of all number of library functions. Maybe this is a just only for your sake. There are so many header files, but some of the header files I have mentioned here, that stdio.h we have already used. That is the standard input output header file, and that will contain the library functions regarding the standard input. Then console input output.h, that is the console input output header file, that will contain like clear screen function. Then string.h. So this will contain all string related library functions like get-s, put-s, get-char, get-ch, etc. Next, stdlib.h, this header file will contain all the general library functions like malloc, calloc, exit, etc. So all standard library functions will be available with this stdlib. Next is a math.h. This name itself says that this header file contains all the math operations related functions like sqrt, power function, exponential function. So all these functions, maybe cos, sine, tan, those all functions are actually in the math.h. Next is a time.h. So this header file contains all the time related functions. Maybe you can change the time of our program. You can start our program on some particular time and it will be used. The time.h can be used and that will be actually calculated with the milliseconds. Next is a ctype.eh. This header file may contains all the character handling functions. Character handling functions, for example, string length, that is the length of any string, length of any word which is written inside the double quotation. Then stdarg, that is variable argument functions which are defined in this header file. Then signal.eh, that is all signal handling functions are defined in this header file. Then, for example, set jump.h, that will contains all the jump functions. Then local.h, that will file contains the local functions. Then error number, that is file containing error handling functions. Then assr.h, this file contains diagnostic function. And also the graphics.h, which will use number of graphics functions, and those all graphics things we can do it with this library function graphics.h. So all of these are with the library functions. So all are those library functions which are actually stored in the C programming language itself. When it is designed, when it is created, those all .eh files are also created. Why we can use any function? So function, where to use the function, why to use the function? We know that function can be used to avoid the complexity of the C program. So the functions are actually used for divide a large code into the module. Large code in the sense, maybe there are 10,000 lines of any C program. So we have to divide this all large code, large source code, number of statements, those in the number of dividations. So due to this, we can easily debug and maintain the code. Why? So any number of maybe 10,000 lines of any C program may have some complexity regarding to debug any program. To maintain this code is very difficult. So for example, we will write the calculator program. At the time we can write every logic in a separate function. For example, addition, for addition we can write some function. For subtraction we can write this sub function. So any function can be called many times. Any number of times you can call that function. So that is very important. Why we can use the function? The large code we can divide, as well as we can use the same function number of times or many times. So we know that the definition of function says that it is a group of statements which will together perform a specific task. So function is a group of statements that will together perform a specific task. Every C program have at least one function which we can know as a main function, and all the most trivial programs can define additional functions. So you can divide your code into separate functions. You can divide your code into separate functions. How you divide up your code among different functions is up to you. How many number of times you can use the functions for the specific task, that will depend on you. But logically the division is such that each function may perform the specific task. So in the definition of the function, a function declaration tells the compiler about the function name. So at the first we have to declare the function, then return type and the particularly parameters. A function definition provides the actual body of the function. So how the function will look like? The function will look like the same as a main function. We know that we have declared main function, we have used in our C program, that is also declared, and that is actually the name of the function, that is the main. So the function definition that will be provided the actual body of the function. So C standard library functions provides numerous built-in functions that you can use in our program, and that can be called. For example, string cat function, maybe to concatenate for two strings, memory CPY to copy one memory location to another memory location, and so on. There are many more functions. We have already listed all these different .h files that may contains number of built-in functions. So a function can also be referred as a method or a subroutine of a procedure, or you can say subprogram. So how we can define a function? The general form of a function definition is as follows. What is this? You can just say return type. First we have to place the return type, then function name, you have to give the function name, and the parameter list. How many parameters, how many variables, how many arguments we can write in our program, in our function, that will be listed here. And the body of the function will be in the curly braces. Now a function definition will consist of function header and function body. Function header is this is name of that function, and body of the function is a different type. Here are some of the parts of the functions. That is the return type. A function may have return a value. So return type is a data type of the value of the function that will return. Some functions perform the desired operations without returning a value. In this case, the return type is a keyword void. Sometimes we can use the keyword void, which will not returning anything. Now, next thing is a function name. See here in the upper side, which is given in purple color, that is a function name. So the function name is given, it is the actual name of our function, and the function name and the parameter list together constitute a function signature. You can say it is called as a function signature or function definition. So what are the parameters? A parameter is like a placeholder. When a function is invoked, you can pass a value to a parameter, and this value is referred to as actual parameter or argument. The parameter list refers to the type, order, and number of parameters of a function. Parameters are optional, and that is the function may contains no parameters. Sometimes there are no parameters. Sometimes there are number of parameters. Sometimes you can use the actual parameters or arguments. So it will have some list of parameters that has the same type, the same order, and number of parameters. Now, what is the function body? That function contains the collection of number of statements that will define what the function actually does. That is the exactly what function will do, that will be contained in the body of the function. So that is the definition of the function. So this is the particularly function definition. You can say function prototype is given here, and the return type, that is the integer, which is placed here. So this is header part of the function, and this is the body part of the function. Now this is the heading is a name of this function, and void is the parameter or argument that is given inside the parenthesis. There is a no semicolon. See, this is very important, that every function in C program where we can define the header, which will be not ended with the semicolon. So very important, this thing, that every C function definition, when we define the function in the header side, there is a no semicolon. Keep in mind. And later on, you can write the body of this function. It may have number of statements. Number of statements we can use. Only one statement or number of statements. At the last, you can write the return 0. If you are not returning anything, you can write return 0. Okay. Now, this is the example of our function. So what is the example of this function? You can just see the include stdio.h, include iconio.h. Those we have to define every time with the preprocessor. Next, this is the declaration of a function, that is void sum. Sum is declared. Sorry, unfortunately, it is given as a semicolon, and but that is called actually. Then integer a 10, b is equal to 20, and c is also defined. What is this function is defined here. This is only declaration, but we have defined here, and no semicolon is used there. Now c is equal to a plus b. A and b value are actually given at the upper side, so sum will be printed as a c. So this is the summation of a and b, and this is called in the main function. The main function is written here at the last, and this main function contains only the sum function, which is a calling function. This is a calling function. Every time you know that the function will be called in the main function, very important. And you can use number of functions, but number of functions may any one of this function will be at least in the main function. So calling function will be always in main function, and this sum function is exactly called as a called function. So this is the sum is a called function, but main function is a calling function. This is the example of a function. So what are the different categories of the function? A function may or may not accept any argument, so it may or may not return any value. So based on these facts, there are some different aspects of the functions. So what are these aspects of the function calls? First, function without arguments and without return values. What are the different categories? The first category is a function with arguments and without return values. Function without arguments and without return values. Very important, that without word. Second category, function without arguments and with return values. So that is also important. The third category is function with arguments but without return values. And the last is function with arguments and with return values. So those all will be having the different categories, but all these categories we have to see in our next session. Okay, we shall just stop here, and you can just give me your start your videos. Start your videos. All the students, start your videos. Start your videos. Yes. All of you who are attending our lecture, very good, very good. You are going to start your videos. So you are alerting on this session, right? Sania Momin, you start your video. Sakshi, Shreya, Dhanasri, Anjali Patil. Okay. So I think you have been started all videos. All these videos will be get stored on the YouTube. Don't worry. Have you seen it on the YouTube? The lecture, our lecture. Have you seen? When we are going to upload this lecture on the YouTube, have you seen this? Your all photos will be get displayed on the YouTube. Don't worry. You are looking so nice, all of you. Nobody is laughing. Nobody is smiling. Hmm? Are you tired? No, you are not tired, no? Okay. I think we have to stop here. Okay. So thank you very much. We are going to upload this video on YouTube very soon. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have to end this meeting for all. Thank you. Stay safe. Stay